Welcome to the In My Opinion Show. I'm your host, Ronald Barry Robinson. We have with us a fantastic duo. We have Miss Sharon Cheatham and Mr. Harold McIntyre.
Hey, Ron.
I got tongue tied there for a moment. All right.
Pleased to be here today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rush Limbaugh is a racist and freely admits it under the guise of conservatism. Only thing absent is the white hooded sheets. We all can remember George Bush's compassion conservative bullshit. We have seen what his ideology has done to America. It has all but destroyed this nation. Rush Limbaugh is reminiscent of the 1915 film by W.D. Griffith, Birth of a Nation, with all its inaccuracies that divided the nation then as it does today. Limbaugh talks about conservatism, but all that is a code word for white dominance and the exclusion of all other voices. The Birth of a Nation, also known as the Klansman, sparked protests, riots, lynching, rapes, and divisiveness since its first release in 1915. The movie tells the story of the aftermath of the Civil War during Reconstruction. The South is now under the rule of blacks. Fast forward, the South and the nation is now under the rule of a black man, President Barack Obama. The movie goes on to say how Southern whites were organized into vigilante groups now called the Ku Klux Klan. Do you see the connection with Rush Limbaugh and the conservatives? They may not be wearing white sheets, but given the opportunity, they would be just as deadly, hateful, and divisive. The Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, Alabama has identified over 1,000 hate groups spewing hatred and racist agenda, and I would suspect many of these hate groups are conservatives. The conservatives like the KKK are waging wars on the Democrats, Republicans, liberals, and all others that don't agree with the conservative philosophy, which means opposition to change. And for Limbaugh, this is the ideology seed for ethnic cleansing. I'm sure we all remember the Romans versus the Jews, Europe's Dark Ages, Hitler's Germany, Bosnia, Tutsi Hutus, and Saddam Hussein. When you tell the President of the United States you hope he fails, that's a strong statement to make. Get over it, Limbaugh. Tens of millions of men and women voted for Obama. What is your thoughts, Sharon?
I think that Rush is trying to be the main spokesman for the Republican Party. But what really irritates me is when he says that he hopes that his administration fails. I don't go along with that at all.
The Obama administration.
Yeah, that Rush hopes that his administration fails. So in other words, he wants America to fail because Obama is trying to change things around, untie these knots, untangle this mess. And I think that, he's working hard and he's a smart man. And for him to make a statement like that, in other words, he wants America to fail.
I couldn't agree with you more. What is your thoughts?
Well, certainly, if Obama fails, Rush will fail too, because his business will go down. But far more from that is that I think Rush Limbaugh is a bigot more than he is a racist, because the things that he is saying not only hurts the main people that he's supposed to be supporting, which is the NRA. If you didn't think about it, it's the NRA, because he's a big supporter of the NRA. So, and that's the National Rifle Association. So certainly that would be something. The things he says is certainly hurting those people at the same time. So I think he's more of a bigot than he is racist. But regardless of what he says, I think that it's all about entertainment. And that's what he's about. He's about entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
And if people take what he says out of context, then they take that out of context. But it's about entertainment. It's how many people that he can get to tune into what his rhetoric and all that garbage that he's been talking about.
Right.
Well,
because he's not a politician.
Absolutely.
He's a radio talk show host.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Just like Imus is the same thing.
Right.
Same
Right.
identical thing.
Right.
So why do you think, here the other day, after the little spill that Rush Limbaugh gave there, I guess the chairman of the Republican Party, Michael Steele, objected to it and said something, and then he came right back, Steele, talking about Steele, more or less trying to apologize. I mean, what was up with that shit?
Steele is a politician. You have to remember, he's a politician. He's an educated black man, and he has to do what he feels is appropriate for his party, and that was the apology. And I guarantee you, he didn't want to do it, but being a politician and being in the position that he is, he had to do what was right for his party.
Right. Because they're trying to rebuild their party.
Absolutely.
And they don't want this as a black eye. Because people were saying.
Because I think he's the first minority. Been the minority of the Republican Party, isn't he? Is he the
Yes.
first black that's ever been the?
So
think
far
so.
as I know, yeah.
Yeah. So
I
he
think so.
certainly has to step lightly.
Right, he
you know,
does, he
in
does.
regards to that. So
You can email the In My Opinion show through inmyopinionrbr@aol.com. Never choke in a restaurant in the South. Two hillbillies walk into a restaurant. While having a bite to eat, they talk about their moonshine operation. Suddenly, a woman at a nearby table who is eating a sandwich begins to choke. After a minute or so, it becomes apparent that she is in real distress. One of the hillbillies looks at her and says, "Can y'all swallow?" The woman shakes her head no. Then he asks, "Can y'all breathe?" The woman begins to turn blue and shakes her head no. The hillbilly walks over to the woman, lifts up her dress, yanks down her drawers, and quickly gives her right butt cheek a lick with his tongue. The woman is so shocked that she has a violent spasm, and the obstruction flies out of her mouth. As she begins to breathe again, the hillbilly walks slowly back to his table. His partner says, "Y'all know I heard of that there hind lick maneuver, but I ain't never seen nobody do it." Just a little humor, folks. Just a little humor. Nothing against hillbillies.
that's racist. That's just
or hind lick maneuvers. Another humorous. We try to mix things up on this show, okay? We're not always serious and talking about races and
world politics.
world politics
Politics of the day.
and then all that kind of stuff, okay?
Y'all understand?
The Spoon, a lesson on how consultants can make a difference in an organization. Last week, we took some friends to a new restaurant, Steve's Place, and noticed that the waiter who took our order carried a spoon in his shirt pocket. It seemed a little strange. When the busboy brought our water and utensils, I observed that he also had a spoon in his shirt pocket. Then I looked around and saw that all the staff had spoons in their pockets. When the waiter came back to serve our soup, I inquired, "Why the spoon?" Well, he explained, the restaurant owners hired Anderson Consulting to revamp all of our processes. After several months of analysis, they concluded that the spoon was the most frequently dropped utensil. It represents a drop frequency of approximately 3 spoons per hour. If our personnel are better prepared, we can reduce the number of trips back to the kitchen and save 15 man-hours per shift. As luck would have it, I dropped my spoon and replaced it with his spare. I'll get another spoon next time I go to the kitchen instead of making an extra trip to get it right now. I was impressed. I also noticed that there was a string hanging out of the waiter's fly. Looking around, I saw that all of the waiters had the same string hanging from their flies, so before he walked off, I asked the waiter, "Excuse me, but can you tell me..." Oh, here it is. "Why you have that string right there?" "Oh, certainly." Then he lowered his voice. "Not everyone is so observant. That consulting firm I mentioned also learned that we can save time in the restroom. By tying this string to the tip of our you-know-what, we can pull it out without touching it and eliminate the need to wash our hands, shortening the time spent in the restroom by 76.39%. I asked quietly, "After you get it out, how do you put it back?" "Well," he whispered, "I don't know about the others, but I used a spoon." The moral of the story: don't frequent restaurants that have waiters with spoons in their pockets.
Those come from Republicans, didn't they?
Conservatives, you know.
Probably Rush.
On a more serious note here, Michigan prisons, let the cons go. Michigan has thousands of men, women, and children locked up at a cost to the taxpayers of hundreds of millions of dollars yearly. America is the world's leader in incarceration with an estimate over 7.3 million folks under supervision of the criminal justice system or criminal injustice system. Most convicted felons would not reoffend again, especially first-time offenders. Those sentenced to long terms for having small amounts of powder, crack cocaine, the old, infirm, or terminally ill. Certainly there is a price to pay for granting freedom, but hard choices must be made, and now is the time. In Michigan, it is estimated that 1/3 of the state budget goes to corrections, and this is mirrored across the nation. Alternatives to prisons must be the new standard. Give those released or prior to release an opportunity to be successful, open up more educational opportunities for prisoners, provide real job training and partnerships with private, state, and federal agencies. This time, provide the tools necessary for success. I'm not suggesting opening up the gates without supervision, but it would be much cheaper by billions of dollars yearly for tethers and strict supervision than for lock them up and throw away the key mentality that has not proven to work and will never work. On certain crimes, once released from jail, prisoners and parolees that don't reoffend, there should be a limit to time that those convictions should stay on their record. If not, you're designated to a lifetime of hardships and misery. You should not have to spend a lifetime paying for something you already paid for. What this means to me and why I'm putting it out here is that far too often it's cheaper. I mean, it's not cheaper, but it's easier to put somebody in prison, all right, than to provide the tools necessary for success. And once these people are sent to prison, all right, just because you're sent to prison, that doesn't mean you're bad, all right. There's a lot of good people locked up. It's just that unfortunately, unforeseen circumstances created that situation. All of us could wind up, in locked up at some point. All right. I worked in the prison system for years. Okay. A lot of good guys. I worked in women's prison and men's prison. A lot of good people, are locked up. It's just that for various reasons, they didn't have the thinking caps on. All right. And I'm not suggesting, you let murderers go and pedophiles and people like that. But number one is the cost factor. Okay, we can't continue to spend 1/3 of the budget. All right, and with the economy the way it is, it's going to escalate. It's going off the chain. That's just the way it is. All right, and we have to do something about this. And again, once a person has been off of paper parole, all right, or probation, for a number of years to be decided by the legislature, all right, then those sentences should be expunged, taken completely off their record, because you got millions of people that can't get jobs because of that stigma, all right, and hell, you've already given up a portion of your life. The courts say, well, pay your debt to society. Well, damn, I've already spent 5 years in there. All right, okay. I mean, how much more time do I have to spend? But yet, the way it is now, you're resigned for the rest of your life. All right. What is your thoughts on that, Harold?
Ron, let me give you a news flash. Those people are in prison because they made that choice. They made the choice to do whatever laws that they broke. They made that choice. It wasn't our doing. This is certainly not a debatable issue here. They made the choice to do whatever they do to get in prison, whether they're good people or bad people or indifferent. They made the choice. That's number one. The issue about them having that on their record for the rest of their lives, I certainly agree. That should be expunged. It should come off after 6 months or a year after they've done their stint in prison or whatever it is, whether it be in fact, I really don't have a problem with a pedophile or a rapist if they've done their time and was able to be paroled, whatever it may be, and and have to come out under, say, a year or two of a probation. During that probationary period, they are still being a model citizen, then absolutely, I think that should be taken off the record. But the other issue there is that once you cross that line and break the law, break the laws of this free country, you have to pay a price for that.
Right.
You have to pay. There's no way of getting around that. You got to pay a price for it.
I
Whether it's white
agree.
collar crime or whether it's black collar crime, whatever crime it is, you got to pay the price.
I agree with that. But you pay, you pay your debt, okay? But as I'd agree with you, at a certain period of time, this stuff should be taken off your record. Give these people an opportunity to be successful, all right? Instead of this stigma. All this shit is doing is enriching the criminal justice system, all right? Continually.
Well, we certainly have to reform the criminal justice system. That certainly has to be reformed, and I believe that would be one way that we can do that. But at the same time, we have to make sure that the people that are in there are predominantly just us that are in there. We have to re-educate us. They have to be educated as to what they can and cannot do, and given jobs so that they would support the family. Because a lot of times, well, I mean, I wouldn't even say a lot of times, but some of the times that people are in prison is because they're trying to fend for their families. They're trying to
Exactly.
feed their families, and they go steal or whatever they have to do to feed their families. They know it's wrong, but they have to do something to feed their families. So we have to educate them and give people jobs, whether they be white, black, Indian, Puerto Rican, whatever.
Exactly.
You have to
Everybody.
get them a job.
Exactly. Because no real man or woman, all right, due to circumstances beyond their control, and if they have a family or children, are they going to let them are they going to let them starve? What is your thoughts?
Everybody is entitled to a second chance. And I think that if you pay your dues to society, then if you seem to have been rehabilitated or, seem to, come out of this, where you will, benefit society, I see no problem with that, coming out and starting a new life.
Because this hits home to millions of families. We all know somebody, all right, that's gotten into trouble at
Right.
some point or
That's
another.
true.
All right,
Right.
We all know.
That's true.
It is unfortunate that our correctional system is not a educational system.
It's a business.
Is a business.
business,
It's a
exactly.
business. And those young people, those young minds that go in there are maybe good minds, and they made that error or that
Right,
mistake,
right.
and they stayed 2 or 3 years. But during those 2 or 3 years that they're in there, they should be educated
Right.
as opposed to just staying in there and being corrupted. Because they come out with a prison mentality.
Right, I
I've
was
got
just
two
gonna-
brothers that's been there. I'm just saying I know how that happens. They come out with a prison mentality,
Mentality.
and then they figure that everybody owes them, as opposed to coming out with a humble mentality and trying to do something better for their lives. That reminds me of something my dad used to tell me a long time. He told us all, boys, especially the boys, if you don't work, you're going to steal. If you steal, you're going to jail. That's. I mean, I could hear him saying that. If you don't work, you're going to steal.
Steal.
And if you steal, you're going to jail. And it's worst time you can do is black man's time in a jail.
That's true.
And these prisons should give people the tools that are needed. All right. In so many cases, people are incarcerated that have no high school diploma. Give them the opportunity to get a high school diploma, GED.
Right.
If they want to go further, give them the opportunity, to take college courses. All right. Give them that opportunity.
Right.
All right.
I know in a lot of prisons, they find religion because at one time my father was in prison and he became a Jehovah's Witness. And, that changed his whole world, because it was like a lifestyle change for him. And I know that a lot of the guys that are in prison, it was at one time around Mother's Day, they had the men, they lined up and they made Mother's Day cards for their mothers. They all lined up, because mothers are the ones that usually, tend to the sons
Supportive,
more.
yeah, very supportive of the children.
And then
yeah.
when Father's Day rolled around, they didn't get any support. It wasn't any men standing in line because a lot of the fathers weren't in their lives.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of study this all the way. Well, what happened that made you get into this kind of trouble to get you into this position, being in prison? So it has a long history
Sure,
of,
sure.
of a lot of things that affect a person's life. That makes them, as long as they get rehabilitated, I see no problem in allowing them a second chance in life.
Well, exactly. And also, too, you have to take in consideration, religion. In prisons, a lot of prisoners use that as a ruse, to hopefully look favorable, on the parole board and so forth.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with religion,
Yes, no.
but if you want it honestly,
Right.
all right, and your
Yeah,
heart
that's
is in it, not as a means of hopefully
Trying to
maybe
get
getting
out.
out of there earlier. And you see that quite often. Some more humor. Little Johnny's at it again. A new teacher was trying to make use of her psychology courses. She started her class by saying, "Everyone who thinks they're stupid, stand up." After a few seconds, little Johnny stood up. The teacher said, "Do you think you're stupid, little Johnny?" "No, ma'am, but I hate to see you standing there all by yourself." Little Johnny watched, fascinated, as his mother smoothed ice cream on her face. "Why do you do that, Mommy?" he asked. "To make myself beautiful," said his mother, who then began removing the cream with a tissue. "What's the matter, Tommy?" asked little Johnny. "You giving up?" The math teacher saw that little Johnny wasn't paying attention in class. She called on him and said, "Johnny, what are 2 and 4 and 28 and 44? Little Johnny quickly replied, "NBC, Fox, ESPN, and the Cartoon Network." Little Johnny's kindergartner class was on a field trip to their local police station where they saw pictures tacked to a bulletin board of the 10 most wanted criminals. One of the youngsters pointed to a picture and asked if it really was the photo of a wanted person. "Yes," said the policeman. The detectives want very badly to capture him." Little Johnny asked, "Well, why didn't you keep him when you took his picture?" That makes sense, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Little Johnny, huh? Little Johnny attended a horse auction with his father. He watched as his father moved from horse to horse, running his hands up and down the horse's legs and rump and chest. And after a few minutes, Johnny asked, "Dad, why are you doing that?" His father replied, "Because when I'm buying horses, I have to make sure that they are all healthy and in good shape before I buy." Johnny looked worried. Said, "Say, Dad, I think the UPS guy wants to buy Mom." That's our little Johnny.
You're rubbing all over the place, huh?
You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's see if we can find another one here. The love story of Ralph and Edna. Just because someone doesn't love you the way you want them to doesn't mean they don't love you with all they have. Ralph and Edna were both patients in a mental hospital. One day, while they were walking past the hospital swimming pool, Ralph suddenly jumped into the deep end. He sank to the bottom of the pool and stayed there. Edna promptly jumped up in to save him. She swam to the bottom and pulled him out. When the head nurse became aware of Edna's heroic act, she immediately ordered her to be discharged from the hospital, as she now considered her to be mentally stable. When she went to tell Edna the news, she said, "Edna, I have good news and bad news. The good news is you're being discharged since you were able to rationally respond to a crisis by jumping in and saving the life of the person you love. I have concluded that your act displays sound-mindedness. The bad news is Ralph hung himself in the bathroom with his bathrobe belt right after you saved him. I'm sorry, but he's dead." Edna replied, "I didn't hang him. I put him there to dry. How soon can I go home? Happy Mental Health Day." Just into the In My Opinion message board. In 1961, a young African-American man, after hearing President John F. Kennedy challenge to ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, gave up his student deferment, left college in Virginia, and voluntarily joined the Marines. In 1963, this man, having completed 2 years of service in the Marines, volunteered again to become a Navy corpsman. They provide medical assistance to the Marines as well as to Navy personnel. The man did so well in corpsman school that he was the valedictorian and became a cardiopulmonary technician. Not surprisingly, he was assigned to the Navy's premier medical facility, Bethesda Naval Hospital, as a member of the Commander-in-Chief's medical team, and helped care for President Lyndon B. Johnson after his 1966 surgery. For his service on the team, which he left in 1967, the White House awarded him 3 letters of commendation. What's even more remarkable is that this man entered the Marines and Navy not many years after the two branches began to become integrated. While this young man was serving 6 years on active duty, Vice President Dick Cheney, who was born the same year as the Marine sailor, received 5 deferments, 4 for being an undergraduate and graduate student, and 1 for being a prospective father. President Bill Clinton and George Bush, both 5 years younger than the African-American youth, used their student deferments to stay in college until 1968. Both then avoided going on active duty through family connections. Who is the real patriot? The young man who interrupted his studies to serve his country for 6 years, or our 3 political leaders who beat the system? Question: are the patriots the people who actually sacrifice something, or those who merely talk about their love of country? After leaving the service of his country, the young African American finished his final year of college, entered the seminary, was ordained a minister, and eventually became pastor of a large church in one of America's biggest cities. The man is Reverend Jeremiah Wright, retired pastor of Trinity United Church of Christ and Obama's former spiritual advisor. Things to know. This is Ronald Berry Robinson for the In My Opinion show, saying stay focused.